In March 2024, System Error released the Verdant update. This is OneLastMidnight. And today I'm going to go through everything that was in the update and how to use it. The newest addition to Astroneer is an item called the Tapper. The Tapper can be found in your research catalog and can be unlocked with 1,000 bytes. It takes 1 aluminum to create the Tapper, and the Tapper is created on your backpack printer. If you completed the first 3 missions in the mission logs, which are very simple, you don't even have to leave your base, you'll get the 1,000 bytes needed to unlock the Tapper. The Tapper is placed on special flora, which when hovering over it, it highlights and gives you a tooltip. This flora can be harvested to bring back to your base or can be used out in the wild where you find it. Placing the Tapper on the flora will start the extraction process, and you're currently extracting organic. Whether this changes in the future or not is unknown, but right now what you get is organic when you tap to specific items that allow you to harvest from it. When the Tapper is completed extracting, you have 1 unit of organic. You can also control the Tapper by holding F to toggle it on or off, and you shut on and off this green little light telling you that the Tapper is no longer working. You can then remove the organic. The Tapper will not extract the next set of organic if you have shut it off. Otherwise, it will constantly run and generate organic. But it doesn't just dump it on the ground, it leaves it there for you to pick up. So you'll only get 1 organic at a time. There are 5 new tappable plants in Astroneer, and all of the new plants have these little flowers that are attached to them, making it easy to identify when you're out running around. The flume fern can be found in the foresty area on Silva. On the sandy deserts of Calidor, you'll find the cacti plant. In the forest of Visania, you'll find the stretch petal plant. On the grassy, craterous areas of Glacio, you'll find the pickle pod. And on Atrox on the surface, usually next to something dangerous, you'll find the honey pot. Remember that you can harvest all of these plants and bring them home and have them on display at your base. Not only that, they're extremely useful for tapping and getting that organic. Each one of these plants will produce organic at a different rate, Silva being the absolute slowest, and the Atrox plant being the absolute fastest. You can see the difference between the two. Off in the distance is Silva, and the Atrox plant is just plowing through generating organic. Each one of these plants will produce at a different rate. The difficulty of the planet really determines how quick the organic gets produced. While System Error gave us 5 new plants, you don't necessarily have to use the Tapper on these specific plants. All hazards in the game are also tappable. So if you feel like being a little bit dangerous and you want to tap those hazards, you absolutely can. This also applies to the hazard seeds that you've dug up from other planets and replanted back at your main base. The rate in which it will produce organic is really based on where the plant originated from. This fractal rose is originated from Silva, where the elegant spew flower is coming from Atrox. So the rates of collection will be the same for Silva and Atrox, much faster and much slower. Alright, well, you've spent the time gathering up the plants and replanting them back at your base, or maybe you've gotten some hazards and replanted them back at your base, but what do you do with all this fantastic organic? The Tapper can be unlocked very early in the game, within the first couple missions. And one of the biggest problems of the game is power. So, the Tapper is a great resource for you to be able to gather power. This setup costs very little. It doesn't take much to get this initial part of this setup configured. It might take you a little bit longer to get enough bytes to get the auto arm, but once you do, you can have a scenario where you're generating power via the small generators, and then have an auto arm automatically feed the organic into some sort of storage, which will then feed the generators. You could also extend this logic out if you happen to have a storage sensor. So in this scenario, we have 2 generators eating up our organic, and we also have a storage sensor to sensing if this is full or not full. Once the organic is completely used up inside of the generators, organic will be taken off of the storage, and new organic will be placed on the auto arms because the auto arms got turned on by the sensor. Once the storage is filled again, the auto arm will turn off, conserving the power that was being used from the auto arm. Remember that I am only using plants that are on Silva, so this is a great scenario for early game Silva to have automatic power generation. You can easily expand out this setup to house any number of generators and collect any amount of organic that you might possibly need. And again, if you want to get a little bit more creative, you can have batteries on here where you have power sensors or battery sensors that then turn around, monitor the amount of power that is going into the battery, and only turning on and off these generators and auto arms when you need it. A slightly more advanced concept of the same setup, which uses a different plant. These plants are from Visania, which produce organic slightly faster than the Silva plants. You can have these auto arms taking the organic off, smelting them into carbon, have the auto arm pick up the carbon and put it into the generators. This little setup, if it was an initial brand new, would need to be slightly powered from the beginning. You could use that from your hab just to pick up one piece of organic and have it smelted. And once the smelting is complete, you can put the carbon on the auto arm to filter the carbon so that it doesn't steal the organic from the smelters. And then that second piece of carbon will then turn around and feed medium generators. And at that point, this becomes fully self-sufficient and automatically running for infinite power. The medium generators produce 9 units of power, so you can scale this up to any size that you want to scale it up to, which would produce a lot of power for your base. But remember that the medium generator does take tungsten, so you'll need to go off to Calidor or DeSolo in order to get wolframite so that you can produce the medium generators. If you're lucky enough while you're running around the caves, you can find medium generators laying around occasionally, which will help you boost start your power production. Now, a slightly more advanced setup would be an automatic research center for plastic. Of course, you can just automatically generate plastic. This is not self-sufficient because we can't get plastic from organic. We need another resource such as compound, but compound's abundant. And if you've gotten to the point where you're using an extractor on compound, then you've got enough compound to choke a horse. In this case, I've got my 2 chemistry labs producing plastic, which are going into storage containers, and then the auto arms are transferring it from the storage containers into the research chamber to research for infinite number of bytes. Well, at least until I run out of compound. Now, why would I do that? Well, we do have an infinite source of bytes now with the organic, but unfortunately, organic only produces 50 bytes in 5 minutes, which is not a very good exchange rate. You can use the research items that are found on Silva, but those are typically anywhere from 460 to 600, and it takes 10 minutes to research those items. Now you could just say, well, I can use the carbon since I'm mass producing carbon, and that should give me more. And it does, but it only gives you 75 instead of 50 at a 5-minute exchange rate. Where plastic is going to turn around and give you 250 at 5 minutes. So that's actually in 10 minutes time, which it would take to do this particular item for 450, you're actually going to get 500 bytes, giving you a better exchange rate for bytes. If I set my canisters to output, because they're completely full right now, you can see we have the whole research process going on. You might not want to do something like this, but that's really the only thing that you can do with this organic. Unfortunately, there is no single carbon item that can be created either on the backpack or the small printer, so it leaves carbon out for being used to create anything. If glow sticks were able to be created on the small printer, we can then have a setup that would allow us to create scrap from glow sticks. Glow sticks only produce 1/4 of scrap when scrapped. So it would take 4 of these to produce 1 item of scrap, but if you had infinite organic, you could have infinite number of glow sticks. Conversely, if we could have the small printer produce the holographic figurine, which takes 1 plastic, we could then use that to scrap, which produces a half a scrap per holographic figurine. Either of these solutions would have been fantastic for some sort of automated scrap production that could be used early on in the game. Carbon is used for various items inside of Astroneer: plastic, tungsten carbide, explosive powder if you have sulfur, and steel if you happen to have argon and iron. Regardless how you use the tapper or what plant you use them on, System Error and Astroneer now has given us a way in order to be able to produce a vast quantity of power early game without having to do much work or much hunting around. Also, a very easy way to create that carbon when we need the carbon for later uses in more advanced recipes. Well, I hope you found this episode helpful, and if you did, hit that like button. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. Would love to have you in the community. If you want to follow me on any of my social media, you can find the links in the description below, and make sure to hit that notification bell. That way you know when I go live and when I post new videos. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.